If you can hear me, do a backflip. I don't think my mic's on. Good morning. I want to address something real quick before I get into any of the actual talk. I'm going to blow your mind for a second. I'm not using slides. So there's not going to be pretty pictures up here. And that's on purpose because, like you, I've spent my last 18 months staring at screens. So I didn't want this hour to feel like that. I'm big on connecting with people in real life. So thank you guys a ton for actually coming. I want to start with making a bunch of wild, baseless assumptions about everybody in the room from only 2 days of conversations in the exhibit hall. So I am not you, but I'm going to make some assumptions. When I was talking to Kendra about speaking, I was asking who would be here, and she said, well, there's going to be school psychologists, there's going to be people who work in criminal justice, there will be social workers and coaches. And she said something that stuck with me. She said, a lot of people who are trying to work themselves out of a job, which kind of tripped me up, but it makes a lot of sense, right? The better you get at your job, the less relevant your work will be to the people you serve, because hopefully they're getting better on a daily basis, which creates this weird relationship with your work where you love it and despise it at the same time. Creates some weird identity politics there, which I do want to talk about at some point. But there's something insidious about working yourself out of a job, which is this. If you're really good at your job, if you rock and you're helping people progress every single day, that means that there's an ever decreasing chance that you'll see them next week. And an ever decreasing chance that you'll see them the week after that. Which means that as they get better, you see less of the fruits of your labor. So people aren't calling you up 6 years after you treat them saying, hey, Mary, today was great. I know you're not treating me anymore, but I found a coupon for free ice cream today that I thought was expired, and then it wasn't. So I used it to get some ice cream. Then I pet a dog. Then I went to sleep. It was a great day. Thank you for that talk 6 years ago. That probably doesn't happen super often, although if it does, I'm jealous. And it becomes challenging to wake up the next day and work just as hard as you did the day before, or even harder, without having any real tangible evidence that what you're doing is making a difference, which leads to compassion fatigue, it leads to burnout, and a lot of stuff that you guys have been telling me about in the exhibit hall for the past couple days. It's not been an easy period for anyone, but what I also find interesting about folks who provide care for people is that when the world explodes, people turn to you guys and say, oh, Jan will help me. She's good at helping people. The world exploded, I know who I'll turn to. And that puts you in a position to bite your tongue when you want to say, I live in the exploded world that you live in. I am experiencing the same thing that you are. I'm here to help for sure. But who's going to help me? Who's the person that I turn to? And that's what trips me out about. I had a talk with a woman yesterday in the pool before lightning struck, and we had to get out. I didn't see it. I think the pool people just they wanted a break. But we were in the pool talking about how challenging it was for her to do. She had to switch to Zoom therapy, like a lot of you guys did. And she would say, she was telling me how she would be talking with a client about something really serious. Like these people are experiencing real traumas in their life. And her daughter spilled apple juice on the couch in the background of the Zoom video. So the client knows, but the therapist does not know this. And it was a perfect snapshot of the fact that the people we turn to for care are living in the world that we are when we turn to them for care. And that's kind of why I want to connect with everyone here today, because I want to honor some of the challenges you guys have been facing and remind you of the impact that your work has every day, give you a sneak peek at some of the fruits of your labor that might be withheld from you over the past couple of years. But I want to start... I need to give you guys some context. So I've talked to maybe half of you in the exhibit hall. The other half are wondering why I am here and how I got on stage. I'm a mental health advocate, which you could probably tell from me being at a place like this, I'm also a touring musician. So I used to tour in a blackened death metal band called Dark Sermon. Any blackened death metal fans in the house? Really? Huh. I thought this was like a Cannibal Corpse kind of dying fetus kind of crowd. I guess not. Okay. That's okay. I misread rooms sometimes. It happens. So I toured in a death metal band for years. I was signed to labels in the US and Europe, touring all over. And then now I'm in a band called Prison. It's more like new metal. So if you guys don't like Cannibal Corpse, you guys probably like Slipknot and Korn, right? What? Really? That's awesome. There's always closet metalheads every single time I speak somewhere. So that's a big part of my life is music. I love supercars. For some reason, I don't even have a good reason for that. It's just something that's fascinated me. I love sneakers. There's actually a supercar show tomorrow morning, so I'm going to bug Kendra to see if I can score an extra night at the hotel so I can go to that show in Orlando tomorrow. I have hobbies. I have things that I enjoy that are not related to mental health or saving the world, much like you do, but I grew up not realizing that. I grew up putting each of you guys in a box. And I figured, you are your job. You are your job. If you told me, oh, I like cars, I like sneakers, I like music, I'd go, well, but you're a therapist. You know, you don't like it as much as I do because we're different. I'm a person, you're a position. I grew up thinking that. And a few other details about me before I get into the talk part, which is going to be super fun. I have saved them tattooed on my knuckles, so I know a little bit about compassion fatigue. I have "You Matter" tattooed on the back of my neck, so that people who judge me and don't want to talk to me still get blessed by something. But I'm not really here to talk to you from the perspective of a touring musician or from the perspective of a car guy or a sneakerhead. I am here to talk to you from the perspective of your problem client, because that's exactly who I used to be for almost my entire life. So I can see you guys even though the lights are kind of bright. So raise your hand if you have a problem client. Raise one hand. Oh, you guys are pretty lucky, huh? Oh, no, keep your hand up. We're not done. Hand up if you have a problem client. You can raise it, it's okay. Keep that up. Raise your other hand if you have more than one problem client. If you have problem clients, plural. Now pretend you're on a roller coaster. Now, real quick before you put your hands down, please look around the room and see all the other people with their hands up. This is proof positive that you are not the problem. It is so easy to blame ourselves. We think, oh, I'm struggling with this client, or this client isn't making progress. And we start to think, I'm not a good provider. I'm not good at my job. I must not care. Maybe I used to be sharp, but now I'm losing my edge. We blame ourselves. We think that we're not good. But in an environment like this, we can look around and go, oh, statistically speaking, it's probably not me. Now, what made me a problem client? I want to describe a little bit about how I used to treat folks like you, why I used to judge folks like you, and how I came out of it. So first of all, I need you to understand the way I grew up. I grew up in an abusive household, probably like all of your problem clients and maybe some of your star clients. And when you grow up in an abusive household, you learn, I'm preaching to the choir right now, you learn all the wrong things about yourself and about the way the world works. So for example, I learned if you feel upset, you harm an innocent, inanimate object. You break stuff, you kick stuff, you punch stuff, and if there are people around, they might get hurt too. That's what I saw. You raise your voice, you curse, you insult people, you scream, you punch, you kick, you are violent and angry, and you express it. That's how you deal with it. You get it out. And if someone happens to be caught in the crossfire, that's their problem, not yours. I grew up with that as my example. So I learned from a very young age a few things that Didn't play out super well for me once I got out into the real world and realized that you get in trouble for stuff like that at school. But I learned one specific thing from my parents that made me a problem client, and that was that adults were the enemy. Adults were big and strong and powerful. They were in positions of authority, and they had the authority to hurt me. So I go into a school environment, and I become a problem student because adults are the enemy. I don't care if you're a teacher. I don't care if you're the lunch lady, which she didn't do anything to deserve some of the things that I said. And I don't care if you're a school psychologist, if you're a principal, social worker. If you were an adult, even a substitute teacher, I was angry at you immediately. The moment I saw someone who was old enough to drive and tall enough to hurt me, I marked them as an enemy immediately. And there was no amount of digging out of that hole that they could do. And I'm sure that I interacted with people at school that thought that they were the problem. They would think, wow, this kid really doesn't like me. Is it my breath? Is it my shoes? Did I say something wrong? And I know that I've impacted so many adults that way throughout my childhood. I made them think that they were the problem. But really, I was so hurt by the adults in my life that I just applied those behaviors that I saw played out at home to every adult. And I assumed evolutionary psychology, so I don't blame myself 100%. I blame evolutionary psychology a little bit. I was trying to protect myself. I was in defense mode all the time. If a teacher walked by the back of my desk, I did this. I couldn't help it. It happened. I had no control over it. And what makes things even worse is that, so I grew up with a lot of different diagnoses, schizophrenia, bipolar 1, OCD, PTSD, GAD, ABCD, EFG, a long, long list. And I was on all types of different medications and in different types of treatment for years and years. But the most debilitating diagnosis is one that is not commonly talked about. And I was diagnosed at a very, very young age. And it was maybe the most debilitating. It's called middle child syndrome. And it kept me from experiencing a lot of normal life experiences. So just so you have a picture of my parents and my siblings. So I got a mother and father who I explained maybe set some of the wrong examples. Then I have two brothers, and I'm in the middle. So my older brother is like an all-American pickup truck driving, football throwing, barbecuing, tailgating, all-American man. And my little brother is an all-American man driving pickup trucks and throwing footballs, drinking beers. And I, if you can't tell, was not that. So it was tough. I was the kid wearing girls' jeans, writing poetry in his bedroom, painting, drawing. I did theater. I'm wearing girls' jeans right now. Actually, they're tremendously comfortable. Guys, you are missing out. They make guys' jeans out of different stuff. I could do a whole talk on it. But my brothers knew that, right? They knew that I got my clothes in the girls' section. They knew that I was writing poetry in my bedroom, that I was drawing, and that made me a target. So now I'm a target for my parents because I'm small and round. I'm a target for my brothers because I'm different. So older and younger brother team up on me. So here's what I'm learning in my home. Adults are the enemy, but wait, kids are the enemy too. No one's on your side. Then I go to school, surrounded by enemies. No one's on my side. I had a dog named Casey. She was on my side. That's it. I couldn't bring her to school. She was big. But I learned, not only did I learn that adults were my enemy and kids were my enemy, but I also learned that vulnerability would get me in trouble. And this caused a lot of damage and difficulty for you guys when I would go to your offices. So, for example, my brothers knew exactly what to do to push my buttons. They knew how to get under my skin. I mean, that's kind of what siblings do. They like are behavior analysts, and they like take these notes like, oh, this really bothers Johnny. Ooh, what if I combine this with that? They're like mad scientists combining different formulas to reach the ultimate level of discomfort in their sibling. And so I remember one time, we didn't go out to eat much when I was younger, so it's a real treat to go to a restaurant now. And my mother took us to Subway, which was like an event. If you remember the $5 footlong days, this was a big deal in the Crowder house. So we went and we each got a footlong because we're growing boys. Give us a break, and they're $5. So each of us orders a sandwich, and I was cool with Chick-fil-A because my OCD was, I'm sorry, I said Chick-fil-A. Caleb and I ate at Chick-fil-A this week, so my mind is elsewhere. So each of us got our sandwiches, we sat down, and I was cool with Subway because they use gloves. And I see them handling the food with gloves. There was something about it that felt safe to me. I knew that no one was putting their grubby little fingers on my food. So there was this level of safety around Subway. I saw it from the moment they pulled the ingredient out, to the moment it was in the bag, to the moment I was eating it. I saw the journey of the food, and it made me feel safe. And I could eat that. And during this time, I'm not touching people. I'm not touching doorknobs. I'm not stepping on cracks. I'm not sitting near windows. I'm not touching my food. I mean, it was very difficult to live a day, like to just have a day, like to put deodorant on, walk down the stairs, make a sandwich. I couldn't do a lot of things. So this little moment, having my Subway sandwich right where I saw each ingredient carefully held, I just wanted to eat it in peace. But my brothers were there, and they couldn't let that happen. So what they did, and I'll never forget this because I saw it, and I can guarantee, I'll bet you the door prize if I win it. I'll bet you my door prize that you've never seen something like this in your entire life. My teenage brother unwrapped my sandwich while I was filling my drink and licked the entire sandwich. If you'll remember, the sandwich was a foot long. So this was a very committed act of foolery. There was like a full second of tongue to bread contact. That requires a level of cruelty that I cannot imagine. And of course I couldn't eat. I was mortified. It's funny looking back now, but I lost my mind. And it affected me for months. Every time I saw food, I thought that maybe someone licked it. It haunted me. So I learned, well, you don't want to show vulnerability. You don't want to share what bothers you because people will use it against you. My brothers knew that I had an aversion to germs. They used it against me. It was a weapon. So I figure, better hold my cards close to my chest. I don't want to let anybody know what I'm dealing with. Which I know a lot of you guys are thinking, great. That'll make my job super easy when he comes to my office. And then at this time, I was also playing concerts. So I was just getting started. I played my first concert when I was 15 years old, maybe I just turned 16. And concerts, I'm not sure if you guys have been to a concert. They're disgusting. They're like the most germ-infested places in the universe. And if you're thinking like, oh, concert, like I went to see Dave Matthews Band at an amphitheater. No, that's not dirty. That's dirty, but it's not death metal dirty. Death metal dirty is different. Like the bands that we're touring with, like we don't shower because where are we going to shower? We're sleeping in a van every night. All these people at the shows are just covered in sweat and blood from a mosh pit. I mean, it is just plain nasty. So I had to get over a lot of my OCD aversions just to be able to participate in the music scene, which was tremendously healing for me as a coping mechanism. To be able to write music, to perform, it was cathartic. So I had to overcome these huge obstacles to be able to live my dream of being a musician. And I remember one time we were playing, is anybody here from like the Sarasota Manatee area? A couple people. So we played at a venue called Nightlife in Sarasota. This was about 10 years ago, so some people know it. This was early in my music career where when we played with bands that were bigger than us, I was like, oh, these are rock stars, right? And there's this band that we played with from South Florida called Thick as Blood. They're as heavy as they sound. And it was our first time playing with Thick as Blood. And I grew up with Thick as Blood posters on my closet door. My parents were so mad. They didn't want that stuff in my room. But I was a fan of Thick as Blood. I listened to them often. And then we get booked on the same show as them. And I go, oh, here we go. This is our first time playing with some bigger bands. I'm going to network. I'm going to mingle. See if I can get us into the right circle. So we set up our merch. And typically at shows, the merch tables are like all next to each other for all the bands. And so our merch table happened to be right next to Thick as Blood. So I remember it. And I have terrible memory from a decade of antipsychotic medication. But I remember this clear as day. Our merch table is here. Thick as Blood's merch table is right here. I can touch it. So he's setting up all his merch. And the vocalist comes and sets his gloves down on the table. And I remembered, oh yeah, all the videos I've seen, like music videos of this band, he's wearing gloves. The vocalist is wearing gloves, holding the microphone. And I remember thinking, I don't know why he does that, but this is my perfect in. I'll just ask him, how come you wear gloves? Boom. I'm networking with a rock star. So I was a little nervous, for real. I mean, picture this. I'm like 16 years old. And this dude is the coolest guy to me. He's covered head to toe in tattoos, toured with some of my favorite bands. I've been watching his music videos for years. Sets down his gloves and I go, hey, I've seen your music videos. My first time seeing you guys perform. I was just wondering why you wear gloves. And keep in mind, this was a period of my life when it was difficult for me to make eye contact. It's difficult for me to start conversations with people. It was difficult for me to communicate verbally. I was having a lot of trouble. So especially with some of my schizophrenia was interrupting a lot of my communication abilities. So it was a big deal. I'm trying to stress to you guys, Subway sandwich doesn't sound like a big deal. It was to me. And same with this. Me starting a conversation with someone I was intimidated by was huge for me. It was a huge victory. So I squeeze out the question, why are you wearing gloves? And I was so proud of myself. I was like, I did it. I freaking did it. And he goes, oh, just pretty OCD about germs. Right? And so 16-year-old me goes, there's a rock star who lives like I live? And I know you guys are excited. And I don't want to burst your bubble. But you know how people say never meet your heroes? So I'm going to take a drink of water before I tell you guys this. Just let you guys soak in it. So I remember this so clearly. So he says OCD. And then it was like, does anybody raise your hand if you've ever been to Niagara Falls? It was like that. I unloaded on this guy. It was like gushing forth. I was like, I can't step on cracks. I bet you can't step on cracks too, right? I can't sit in your windows. I bet you can't sit in your windows too. I don't touch food. I don't touch people. And I just went off. I told him everything and it was like a minute, but the longest minute ever. Like time bent. It was, but I felt so relieved, so cathartic. And he's looking at me, and I realize that he's not participating in the conversation. So I'm like, I need to shut up. I need to damn my Niagara Falls for a second so that he can participate. And he goes, oh, I was just kidding. That's really weird. He's like, I just think they look cool. And I was like, I think they look cool too. And then I had to perform in front of this gentleman that night. And so what I learned from that experience was, so keep in mind, just to recap, I'm in a house where parents have become the enemy, so adults are mean and evil. My siblings have become the enemy, so kids are mean and evil. And now I have this experience and I learn idols are mean and evil. And that there's no one living the way that I live in a position of relative success. My one chance to feel like someone could live successfully with what I was going through was dashed. And in fact, I was mortified. I never, and I'm not happy about this, I never spoke to this person again. He didn't do anything wrong. He didn't know. I was so embarrassed that even though we saw each other at shows and performed at shows together in the future, I could never look at him because I was so embarrassed. So I learned with the sandwich incident, as it has come to be known, I learned that showing vulnerability makes you a target because people can use those things against you. Then I learned showing vulnerability is embarrassing and it will crush your dreams. All I ever wanted to do was be a rock star, and I finally meet one, and I'm a freak in the eyes of the person I want to be like. Learning all the wrong things. So then, after a particularly challenging and legally complex behavioral outburst, which I will not describe, I was voluntold to attend treatment. And so I'm sitting down with folks like you, and you're saying, tell me about yourself. Tell me about your family. What are you experiencing? And I say, nice try. Because people have used this against me in the past. You can't fool me because you have an office and it smells good. You can't fool me. I've seen people use this against me before. I've seen this trick. And I don't care who told you that I would cooperate, but they lied. You're an enemy, and I have every single shield at my disposal facing you. I was on guard. And what's worse is I had a really negative attitude. So not only did I genuinely believe that I would never get better, ever, ever, ever. No matter what anyone said to me, I couldn't picture a version of my future that was positive, that was healthier, that I was living any differently. In fact, all I pictured was me getting worse and worse and worse, becoming more and more of a hermit, not being able to perform daily tasks. That's what I pictured. If someone said, what do you think your life is going to be like in 10 years? And I genuinely would say, I'm not going to be here in 10 years. I don't plan on being around that long. Because if it keeps getting worse at the rate that it's getting worse now, I don't need a 10-year plan. I won't be here. I was angry at myself. I was angry at the world. I was angry at what I was experiencing. I was angry at students at my school. I was angry at my parents and my siblings. I was angry at everything. And no amount of calm voice and I statements and mints would make me feel any differently. And what's worse is you guys got caught in the crossfire. Like, you guys did nothing to me at all. If anything, you did a lot more than anybody else in my life to lend me a helping hand. But it reminds me of a story. I listen to a lot of sermons by Timothy Keller, who's a pastor in New York. And he told this really poignant story about a kitten that had fallen into a river. And if you see a kitten in a river, and let's say it's flowing towards a waterfall, you can see the waterfall, but the kitten cannot. So you have a sense of urgency that maybe is at the same level of urgency as the kitten, but it's different. Your vantage point is different. You're like, I know what's next. And the kitten thinks, I know what's now. What's now is I'm drowning. And you say, I know what's about to happen, and I need to help you immediately. The problem is, I don't know how many of you have ever rescued a kitten from a river on its way to a waterfall. It's not super common. But what would likely happen is if you reached out to grab that kitten, it would claw and bite and scratch you to death. It would do everything it could to fight against you because that kitten is in survival mode. And in that moment, the kitten won't stop and say, okay, I was overreacting. Tell me again why you're here. Okay, and your background and your intention. Okay, I need to sleep on that. And I'll let you know if I feel like cooperating. Thank you a ton. And the river, here's the worst part. The river won't stop. What that kitten is experiencing will not stop for your sake. So you're faced with a choice. Reach in and get clawed and bitten by a kitten that I'm trying to help to save it, or say, I'm not trying to get clawed and bitten by a kitten. I love that rhymes. And it puts you in a weird position where if you help, you are hurt. And if you don't help, you're protecting yourself. And in my experience, that's what burnout feels and looks like. It's a false dichotomy. It creates only two options, neither of which are likely or true or necessary. And when I was growing up, I don't care what you told me, I was that kitten, and any hand that reached out to save me was the enemy. It looked just like the hand that threw me in the river. I didn't trust hands. No way. And I don't know if anybody had this weird understanding of teachers when they were in school where in your mind, teachers like slept and ate and bathed and lived in the classroom that you saw them in. And like, there's no way that they would have a life outside of that classroom. And I don't know, for me, like I remember one time I saw my kindergarten teacher, Miss Kusler, in Publix. And it freaked me out. I was like, what are you doing here? Do they let you out for stuff? You have to go back right now, don't you? And I don't care if it was a night or weekend. It blew my mind that a teacher might like grocery shop. A teacher might date. A teacher might like cars or sneakers or music. It was beyond me. I couldn't picture that because I had a very specific idea of who everyone in this room was, and you couldn't convince me that I was wrong, no matter what you told me about your life. I thought that I knew because I was a teenager. Oh yeah, I knew my stuff. And I was judging you. I would go into an office, I remember very specifically, when I first started treatment, I wasn't really participating, but I was there physically. And I remember I met with this one gentleman early on, and he was handsome, guys. He was a looker. Real straight teeth, nice tan, groomed hair. And I would walk in, oh yeah, shirt was never wrinkled, nice clean shoes. Office was very nice and serene. Tissue box always had tissues in it, and they weren't all ripped from the previous person ripping the next tissue in the queue. Always smelled good in his office. And I would walk in and go, you don't know anything about me with your perfect life. I'm sure you drive a brand new car home to your happy, beautiful family. We have 2 kids who get straight A's. And they dance around in your picket fenced yard and bathe in your jacuzzi. And then you take a week off to go to the Bahamas because you're probably getting paid so much money to do the work that you do. You're probably rich, aren't you? That's what I thought. So in my head, this person is here because they're getting paid, baby. They're getting paid. They're paid to care. You care about, I used to work at Chipotle. I cared about rolling burritos because I was paid to roll burritos. So I figured these people care about me because they're paid to care about me. They don't actually care. And I wouldn't believe that years later, 1,000 people that were just like that guy that I judged would spend their week in Orlando learning about ways to care about people like me more effectively. There's no way, much less pay to participate, much less stay on a Friday when a lot of people just skipped out on Friday. A lot of people just went home. They're like, screw it. But a fair amount of people stayed because you guys care about what you do, which blows my mind when I think of how long I've spent judging folks like you. So what did I do with this knowledge of every clinician being an enemy and only caring because they were getting rich? I went to school for psychology to become one of the good ones. I wouldn't be like the other ones. I'm almost positive that's what everybody in this room thought. They were like, I'll be one of the good ones. Look at all these bad providers. I'm going to get in there and I'm going to learn my stuff and I'm going to crush it. And then a few years in, you realize that not everything is what it looks like from the outside. And I'm a provider of sorts, right? I'm not like a provider like you guys are, but I did a fair amount of peer support and public advocacy through NAMI for the last 10 years. And now I run, just to explain Cope Notes real quick as some context. I've met with some of you guys about Cope Notes in the exhibit hall, but just so you have an idea of what I do on a day-to-day basis, I'm the founder and CEO of Cope Notes. We have a table out there if you want information. We provide daily mental health support via text message. So it's all peer-based, reviewed by clinicians, and we're supporting thousands, literally thousands of people with daily mental health support, psychology facts, exercises, journaling prompts, all over the world. And today we're going to hit 20,000 subscribers. Well, don't clap yet, because we're only going to hit 20,000 if you put your phone number down on the clipboard that Caleb is going to pass out, because we're really close to 20,000. But please, if you want to experience Cope Notes and see what it's like, Caleb is going to pass out a clipboard, write your phone number down. We won't spam you. But with that being said, my version of being a provider is behind a computer. So what you guys have been experiencing for the last year and a half, that's what I've been doing for a lot of my career in mental health, is working behind a computer. I used to do digital peer support, like on Skype, if anyone remembers that, before the pandemic. It used to be a thing. And some things never occurred to me before I started working on the provider side. And again, I'm not you, but I have a different vantage point now. And a few things occurred to me that kind of melted my brain. The first is that it's going to sound so obvious to everybody in this room, but I was going to be one of the good ones, remember? So I didn't know this. You can't be a caregiver all the time. Think about it. I thought, oh yeah. So I tattooed "Save Them" on my knuckles, and I was like, it's on. Every single person I meet for the rest of my life, I got their back no matter what. And then when I was doing a previous version of Cope Notes, it was called Not a Therapist, if that doesn't tell you how much of a thorn in my side I had for a lot of you folks. It was called Not a Therapist, and it was a peer support resource. And I was like, we're gonna do a better version of therapy, online therapy. It's all peer support. And then I started getting 100 messages a day from all different people all over the country who were like, hey, can I get on the phone with you for 75 minutes for free? And that started happening constantly. I was working in an advertising agency at the time that was underpaying me like wild. So I'm working 50 hours a week in an ad agency. And then I'm touring in a band that is newly signed, so we're touring full time. And now I'm working 70, 80 hours a week on a volunteer project. And folks would get so frustrated with me because I'd get behind on messages and emails, and they're like, oh, you obviously don't care. If you really cared, you would have gotten back to me sooner. And I'm like, how do I explain to this person that there are 99 other people in my inbox right now asking me for stuff, and I need to poop? I need to shower. I need to go to sleep. I have a project due for work. I want to pet my dog. I need to go to the gym. And I didn't realize that you guys are human beings that have lives. My favorite two-word sentence that I want to trademark, I don't know if I can, that explains my revelation that all people are just people, is, ready for this? Oh, I wish I could put it up on the screen. Remember this. Drum roll, please. Oh, that's awesome. Here it is. Beyonce farts. It's true. And I have to think about that kind of thing when I think about Beyonce farting. When I ever assume that other people need to put down their own life to help me. And I grew up thinking that. I think these people don't have lives, they have jobs. They owe me. They're being paid to help me. Why don't you put down what you're doing to help me? Because I was so hurt and I needed help so badly that I forgot that you guys are people. But the fact is, the other thing that I learned quickly is not only do you guys not do this job for the money, I know, it wasn't obvious to me when I was younger. I started going to school for psych and looking out on the job market. But it also occurred to me that when I started doing the not a therapist and peer support stuff, I realized that it's not only that if you didn't care about this job, you would do something that paid better, you would do something easier. You do something so much easier. I have a friend, good dear friend of mine, whom I will not name, who works for a tech support, like IT company, does phone support. He gets paid double what I was looking at in the job market when I was applying for jobs. And I asked him what his day normally is, and he says, I stay home and play Halo on Xbox in my boxers. And if someone calls, I ask him to unplug it and plug it back in again. And he's buying a house. And I was like, there are people like you guys who know that there are opportunities out there like that. And you say, no, I choose actively to help other people with what they're going through. And I hear a lot of people say this. I catch myself saying this too. So if you hear me say it at the table out there, or I'm doing a Q&A afterwards. So if you want to catch me if I say this at my Q&A, I'm trying to catch myself. Sometimes I'll say, I have to, or I had to, I needed to. I owed it to people to get involved in advocacy and to become a provider and to support other people. No. You could have done whatever you wanted. You could have done anything. For real. You could have become a billionaire and gone to space if you wanted to. But you choose to put up with problem clients like me every single day because you give a crap. And I didn't know that. I would have bet money against it. The thing about compassion fatigue, I want to touch on this quickly. I will do trainings, like whole trainings and talks around compassion fatigue, but I wanted to put a little component in here quickly and address this. First of all, compassion fatigue is real and it does not pick and choose who it affects. So please don't think that you are so fresh and sharp and smart and tough that this won't touch you at some point. Please take it seriously. Because for the past 3 years, I would say 2.5, the first 2.5 years of running Coke Notes, I thought every single day when I woke up, I'm going to quit. I can't do it anymore. I seriously thought that every single day because it was so hard. It was so much work and I was not paying myself. Everything we made, I put back into the company. And I thought, this is a waking nightmare. Everyone's frustrated with me that I'm not giving enough. And I could make more working at Wawa. And I would get discounts on quesadillas and gas. And that sounds great, because my current job, it came with no perks, right? I poured myself out for other people for almost no thanks in return. I felt crushed and diminished. And at the end of every day, I had a long list of people telling me what I did wrong and how I wasn't enough, which sounded really familiar. It sounded a lot like what I heard growing up in my home. I was living out the same diminished self-worth that I tried to escape when I moved out. And I know that a lot of you guys who work in this field are experiencing your own pain and traumas again. It's a trigger fest, folks. I walk in to, so last year I did the Richard's trauma process. That sucked. And as part, it was so brutal. And as part of it, so my therapist lives in Australia because I like his accent. It's so comforting. He'll say like, "It's not fair, is it, little Johnny?" No, it's not. What would you say to little Johnny if you had him here today? You'd say, "It's okay. You're safe." And I'm like, keep talking. So I love this guy. But during this process, I'm telling him everything that I went through. And I'm sparing you guys a lot of gory details. I talked to Jan on the first day that I was here about how when I speak, I purposely leave out the horror stories because that's not productive. But when I'm in therapy, I have to tell the truth. And that's scary and it sucks. And I get goosebumps thinking about it. I have to tell the truth. I can't skip out on some of those details because we have to work through them. So I'm telling this gentleman who lives on the other side of the planet the most horrible, awful things that have ever happened to me. I'm a suicide survivor. I've experienced sexual abuse before. As an adult, I experienced physical and emotional abuse in my home. And here I am telling this person everything. And afterwards, I didn't ask him, but I wondered if anything I said triggered him. He's a person. Hearing that stuff every day, not just me, he has other clients. Hearing that stuff every day, and then having to lay in bed with his wife. His wife says, "How's your day?" What do you say? What do you say? I didn't realize that you guys are people, and compassion fatigue is just that after days and weeks and months and years. So please don't allow yourself to neglect yourself. I don't want to camp out on compassion fatigue too much, but I do want to say don't allow yourself to neglect yourself, and please don't treat folks like me as an obligation or a responsibility. You have an opportunity to help, and you're actively choosing to help those people. You are not imprisoned. You are not held to helping the people that you help. You're making a conscious choice. And this is important for the end of my talk. So please keep it in mind. And the last thing I want to say on this specific topic is self-care is not selfish. I know you've heard that. But I want you to eradicate selflessness from your vocabulary entirely. I go into it more in my longer talks, but please, martyrdom will kill you if you let it. It will. You can be that person who died and became miserable and threw your life away to help other people. You can do that, but you don't have to do that. And it's not a particularly effective way of helping people because setting someone up for success is about sustainable impact, being able to help them over the long term. So like, for example, what happens if somebody wins the lottery? Good things. When's the last time you saw a headline that was like someone won $1 billion and was super responsible and nothing bad happened at all? Like every time someone wins the lottery, it's like they're getting sued and they're like buying sports teams and crashing yachts into Walgreens. It's like always these wild headlines of things that are going really wrong. And it's because when you go from no support to miracle, gulp for effect. When you go from no support to miracle, there's no stability. It's hard to sustain. But you know those scratch-offs that sometimes people put in Christmas stockings and stuff that you can win? Of course, you win like $1 or $2, but then there's a prize that's like $100 a day, and that's like the grand prize. When's the last time you read a headline of someone winning $100 a day and buying a sports team or getting sued? It's so much easier to manage. You think, well, let's see, another $36,000 a year. Well, shoot, kid's going to college. I can take a week off, paying off my car. I'm going to take my wife out to dinner. That sounds great. Sustainable impact is crucial because you can plan for it and you can grow. But the problem is we like immediate impact. I know that when I was doing peer support, all I ever wanted was to have that like mic drop moment where I'd be like, have you ever considered that maybe you're frustrated with your mom because you see a lot of yourself in her? Boom. And just waiting for that person to go, whoa, you changed my whole life. That's all I ever wanted, was that immediate impact moment where I'm like, yes, I want to see the fruits of my labor. But the frustrating part is, most of the time, if you ever say anything like that, people go, I don't think so. I think you're wrong. And you don't get to feel that level of immediate gratification, which is frustrating, right? We want to see that fruit. But the problem is, when you plant a seed, you don't expect it to sprout up right away, right? You put a seed. I had to do this project for school. This was elementary school, I think, for the science fair. And I did this project that I'm pretty sure every child does, which is just you plant seeds in in planters, and then you like put magnets on some of them, and then see if the ones with magnets grow more than the ones with no magnets. And I remember being so frustrated because I would put the plants or the seeds in the planter, I'd put soil in, I'd water it, leave it out in the sun, and then I'd go back tomorrow and freaking nothing. It looks exactly like it did the day before. And then I would go to my mom and be like, it's broken. It's broke. Either the magnet is broken or the water is broken, the planter is broken. Something's not working because I was here yesterday and it looked just like that. It was so frustrating. And with gardening, for example, you know that different plants grow at different paces, and you're kind of measured with the way you water some stuff. Some stuff sprouts early, some stuff takes forever and a half to sprout. Even if there's no visible signs of progress, you understand, well, the sun's doing its thing, the soil's doing its thing, the water's doing its thing. I'm going to trust that eventually, when it's ready, it will sprout. But because everyone is different, when a client walks in your office, you don't know which type of plant that client is yet. So I was doing some research for the talk, and I'm not sure, does everybody know the plant marigold? Like it's a flower, I think? A marigold? Yeah. So it sprouts in 5 days. So the translation for that for you as a provider, caregiver, whatever it is that you do, means that between your first session and your second session, your client is better. 5 days after your first session, boom, beautiful bloom, and you go, great helping you. Glad we got to do this. Take care. All I wanted was marigold clients. That's it. I wanted to have one conversation with them. People say, that one conversation with you changed my whole life forever. And I go, I love my job and my yacht and my mansion. And I'm going to go to space this weekend because I get paid so much to do this work. That's all I wanted, was those instant gratification conversations where I could feel accomplished and move on, and they could feel better. That's all I ever wanted, was for people to feel better. And I started feeling worse and worse about my ability to do my job because I was having a lot of bamboo clients. I was one of those. So bamboo, some of you guys might know this. I would venture to guess that a majority of you don't. Bamboo takes, I wish I could make people guess, but this is a big room. Bamboo takes 3 years to grow roots, which means that you don't see anything at all. You're not seeing anything at all. 3 years, water, sunlight, soil. Water, sunlight, soil. 1,000 days of good stewardship. No fruit. It's heartbreaking. And some of you guys are in that position right now with bamboo clients. And I want to encourage you to potentially switch your verbiage that you use when you are complaining, which I think you should be able to complain to other folks about what you're experiencing at work. However, I would challenge you to start using the term bamboo client rather than problem client. Because bamboo, what's really cool is it takes literally 3 to 4 years for the root system to finish growing. But then when it sprouts, in 5 weeks, it can grow 90 feet. That is tremendous growth. It is 20 times higher yield than any other tree. 20 times the yield. But it's because the root system is so strong after 3 to 4 years of growth that it can support 90 vertical feet. Is it worth serving bamboo clients? Depends how long you serve them. How long are you sticking around? Do you get to see the growth? I was a bamboo client, for sure. And the reason why I was so excited to talk to this specific group, because I speak all over to all different types of audiences. And the moment I had an opportunity to talk to providers, every single time I get an offer that's like, can you come talk to like providers or clinicians? I go, yes, because I need to apologize to them. This is my penance, helping you guys see that some of this stuff is not your fault. And the more that you think it is your fault, the more that you think I'm bad at my job, and this client isn't progressing because I'm stupid or I'm not applying myself, that type of self-talk will affect your relationship with the client in a really negative way. And I've seen it because I drove clinicians to that point where I could see it affect our relationship. So to close this talk out, I wanted to just bring up the fact that seeing the fruits of your labor is a luxury, but it's not guaranteed with the type of work that you guys do. Like I said, a lot of people don't call you up years later saying thank you. It actually took me a full year to remember the name of the clinician that helped me. I did exposure therapy for OCD in high school, and we used to have to do this thing with her. It was a nightmare. And it's going to sound like not a big deal to some of you guys. Other folks are going to go, yup, that sounds brutal. We used to take my iPod, so this dates me. I used to take my iPod, and she would put it in her hand for 5 seconds. She'd put it on the table for 30 seconds, and then I had to put it in my hand for 5 seconds, and it felt like my skin was crawling, like it was burning through my skin. But it helped me a lot. And I sent her an email to say thank you 11 years later. She didn't respond. I wonder if she remembers who I am, because she's seen a lot of clients. But that doesn't happen a lot. A lot of people don't come back and say thank you. So a lot of questions that you guys face are things like, does your work make a difference? Are the long days and hard nights worth it? Whether you're thinking them consciously or subconsciously, I know that some folks are thinking it because people have shared that and confided in me at the table in the exhibit hall. And the question is, why wake up and do it again tomorrow? If the world seems like it's getting worse and your bamboo clients are not growing in the right direction or as quickly as you'd like them to, why wake up and do it again? Without sounding too like, check me out, this is part of why you should continue doing it, because you're making an impact on people every single day, whether they report that back to you or not. And just take me, for example. So I, much to my surprise and to my parents' surprise, have impacted literally millions of people through mental health advocacy. So I did a TED Talk that's almost at 1 million views about reducing self-stigma and some neuroplasticity stuff. I did a video with Upworthy that has millions of views around reducing stigma. I run a resource that we measure lives impacted, not subscribers or users, but lives impacted. And we're going to hit 20,000 today. So it's 20,000 people. Plus, I'm in a band that literally has songs called Mental Illness and Still Alive, talking about choosing to continue living and pushing through suicidal ideation, talking about overcoming sexual abuse, healing trauma in a metal community that most of you guys have never stepped foot in. And I'm one person who you guys helped. I'm one bamboo client that you guys helped. So without adults like you going out of their way to put up with people like me in some of your sessions and your work, all of these people that we've helped through projects and initiatives wouldn't be helped. Like, think about this. There is a child growing up in Oklahoma with a mom because of something that you did, because you chose to do a session that you didn't want to do, because you chose to wake up and do it again one more time, and that child might write a book. And that book might become a bestseller, might change the world. And it might not. It might not. Maybe that bamboo client will still be growing in the same direction for the rest of their life. But the question is, do you want to roll the dice on that? If there's a chance that they'll get better and there's a chance that they won't, do you want to roll the dice? I say it's worth it because you never know. I would argue that my clinicians would have bet their lives that I wouldn't be doing anything like this now, and it's my entire life. So sometimes there's no signs. There's that bamboo season where there's 3 years of sowing into a client and you're like, lost cause, no hope. And year 4, 90 feet. And I want you to be there for that. I want you to be able to see it. There are countless bamboo clients who you've treated that will never reach back out to you, which isn't fair, but it's true. And I need you to hear stories like mine and about initiatives like this because you guys are making a difference, whether the word gets back to you or not. I was the kid at UCF. I had to do mandatory counseling in order to stay in the honors program. And I had to go see a counselor once a week. And my counselor would give me, you know those resource cards, like the little things that they have at colleges? It's like the helpline and the suicide prevention line and the sexual abuse hotline and stuff like that. She would give me a card every single day at the end of the session. And this is so disrespectful. I feel so bad. God forgive me. So she'd give me a resource card and I would do this. Not joking. Wish I was. So that's the door to her office. She gives it to me here. And that's a trash can. I just walk out. And she would watch me throw it in the trash can every single week, right in front of her. I didn't even have the decency to throw it in a different trash can outside of her office. And I wanted to communicate to her, I'm tough. You're not fooling me. You're not on my side, and I don't need you. But one time, I folded up the resource card because she gave it to me early. She's smart. She gave it to me early, so I stuck it in my pocket because I couldn't throw it away yet. And I wound up washing my pants with the resource card in the back pocket of my jeans. And then when I folded my jeans, it was like starchy and weird. And I pulled it out, it was like this matted up resource card. So I put it on my dresser and I left it there for months. Then I was cleaning off my dresser one day, unfolded it, and attended a group that was advertised on the resource card. I never told her. That'd be so embarrassing. I didn't want her to be right about it. But I went, and I didn't even continue going to the group. I went one time, I was like, nah, not for me. But I saw other students who lived with mental illness. And I was like, well, I went to UCF, so I'm like, well, there's 60,000 kids here. Of course, statistically, there's 7 of them that live with something. But that helped me. 7. I might run into these guys in the gym, walking across campus. Who knows? Maybe that person lives with mental illness too. And my brain started imagining that I wasn't as alone as I thought I was. And I need you guys to be those people who choose to give that resource card the 90th time, the 95th time. Because imagine if she never, and I think like this often, not to get morbid, but what if she decided, I'm not going to give him the resource card. He just throws it away every time. So she doesn't give it to me that day. I walk out without it. I go home, continue life as usual. Still experiencing suicidal ideation, disordered eating, self-harming. Am I still around in that version of reality where she stops giving me the resource card? I don't know. That's a dice roll. And I need you guys to understand that when it doesn't feel like you're making a difference, you don't know that. You know how it feels, and that's very real. I don't want to diminish that. It feels like it sucks. I was disrespecting her every single time I left her office. But that tenacity that she had might be the only reason that Cope Notes exists, that prison exists, which is my band, not the prison system. She did not invent the prison system. The only reason that I have a speaking career or do advocacy or why I'm even alive in the first place, there are trillions of tiny little moments like that could have not happened because a provider said, too tired, or I don't feel like it, or this guy disrespects me. And I want to thank you for your patience, applaud you for your patience. And the last thing I want to say is that when I was growing up, my hero was Captain Planet. He's our hero. He's going to take pollution down to zero. What a noble, noble mission. I also like that heart was included. That made me happy. But Captain Planet was my hero because, well, boy, he'd have some strong words for us today in 2021. But he was my hero because superheroes like Batman and Superman, they focused a lot on like keeping buses from falling on people. And it was like a very glorious, like everybody sees, right? Like when a bus is about to fall on somebody and Superman's like, oh, and prevents it, everyone's clapping, he's in the newspaper. Not Captain Planet. He didn't get a bunch of fanfare. Dude, Batman was a billionaire. It was hard to root for him, right? He had like whatever he wanted all the time. And Superman got all this great press. And Captain Planet was just doing the thing. He was just helping the world. He was making sure that there was a world to have a bus to fall on a lady in the first place. He was thinking 30,000 feet, how do I help folks continue existing? And no one's clapping for it's not Captain Planet saves the day. It's him doing the hard work every single day. He was my hero. I respected that so much. It's a big reason why I've saved them tattooed on my knuckles. I love that mentality. So that was when I was like 4 or 5, maybe up until I was 10 or 11. Loved Captain Planet. I just turned 29 last month. My new version of Captain Planet, my new heroes are literally you guys. They're people who choose to do the right thing without being flush with cash immediately, without being applauded every time you do something. Those are the heroes that I think about. This is a room full of 1,000 Captain Planets, which is really cool for me. And I'll say this last thing. I would give anything to swim in a lazy river after my Q&A session with 1,000 Captain Planets. So please come swim with me after. Thank you guys a ton for your work. And please don't overlook the title of my talk, which is, without you, there is no me. Please take credit for it. And when you applaud, which I know you feel like you're supposed to, please do not applaud for me. Applaud for the people sitting to your left and your right. Thank you guys very, very much.